Hello, everybody. Recently, I challenged myself to learn a new programming language, and I settled on learning the programming language C, used by the ancient Egyptians. I'm just kidding. But, anyways, the program we have before us here is a database management system to deal with cars, which references the makes, models, as well as the owners of those cars. So let's go ahead and get a quick understanding of what the program looks like as well as the schema of the database. Let's start with the second one. So the schema of the database is the four tables that include the car, which has reference to the ID of the car, the color of the car, the year of the car, make, model, and owner of the car. These values where the owner is a -1 reference no owner. So these two vehicles here do not have an owner. The make as an ID used to be referenced in other places and a name. Such as here, notice how the make is a number. That is a reference to this ID. Same goes for the model, has a reference to the make that it is attached to, as well as its own ID and its name. And the person is just a person ID and a name. I'm going to use this console for querying later to display some stuff to y'all to show some interesting quirks that I've learned along the way as well. So getting into the actual program, we've got quite a few function prototypes around here. The first 80, almost 90 lines of code, in fact, are just prototypes. So starting out in the main function, we have a connect to the database. This is a function I wrote here to give me a database object. Then we ask the user what they want to do, and we validate their input here, and based on what their input is, we decide which function to go into, and we can exit the function down here. Next up, we have the header. This is the menu the user sees when they are running the program. I have a few functions here, such as isNumeric, has special, and contains int to help with finding values, particularly booleans for if statements. So isNumeric here will tell me if a value is a completely numeric value, including negative numbers where the first value of the string literal is a negative sign or a dash. Note that in C, we do not use strings, we use character arrays, hence why I have to do it this way. Next up, has numeric. This one returns true if there is one singular character in the entire string that is a numeric value. And the same goes for the special. Has special for any special characters. Only one is needed to send it true. Contains integer. This function is going to take an integer array, a value to search for, and linearly search through its size to find the value that we are after. Pretty simple. Then we have the connect function, which I mentioned earlier that I wrote to give me a database object. So we open a database connection. We make the four tables, which are these four exec queries here. And then we return the database object. Pretty simple. So now we get into the meat of the function, or of this program, where we have the functions in play that you can choose from as the user, as the end user of this application, as the client. You have the ability to add a car to the database. Basically, we just ask for your color, year, a make from the DB, a model from the DB, if there's an owner, and then if there is an owner, here we just get the owner. If not, then there is no owner, and we just enter -1 instead. Here we have the function to add a person to the database, where you just give it a person's name, it'll add it to the database for you. Nothing else is required, just a name. That line of logic applies to the add model function here, where all you got to do is get a name for the model, and then give it the ID number of the make. And up here we have the add make, where you give it a make name and it'll add it to the database for you. Now we have the removal functions, of which there are 4. The remove car will, just like it sounds in the 10, remove a car from the database. The remove person will remove a given person from the database, but it will also take any cars that that person has owned, and it will set their owner to -1, basically taking all their cars and making them ownerless. Now we have the remove make function. This will remove all of the cars from the database with this make, all of the models in the database with this make, as well as the make itself from the database. So if I removed Ford from the database, any of these, like F-150, like Focus, any other Ford, GT, Mustang, etc., would all be removed from the database, as well as any cars with those makes and models. Then we have remove model, which is just the same thing make does, except smaller. It just removes all the cars with that model, and then removes that model from the DB. Here we have a function to change the owner, select a new owner for a car. So you give it a car and a new owner, which can be ownerless. You can make a car ownerless with this, and it'll set it for you. It'll update the database. Now we get into the viewing functions. These are all just to see what's in the database if you don't have access to a view where you can just view it manually like I can through the IDE. So we have a function here to view all the cars in the DB, to view a singular person alongside all of the vehicles they have under their ownership, to view all of the makes in the database, to view all of the models in the database, to view models under a given make. So say I want to see all the models that Subaru has to offer, I'd give them Subaru, and I'd get Legacy, Outback, Crosstrek, Ascent, etc. Pretty simple. View cars model. We give it a model, and we see all the cars in here that have that model as its model. View cars make is the same thing, except with the make instead of a model. Takes it and has a bit more of a broader focus. View cars year. You give it a year, and it will return and show you all the cars with that year. So, example, both cars here with 2016 would show up if you entered 2016, and none would show up if you entered a year where none of these existed in. And then finally, view cars by year. All this does is display the cars, all the cars in the database in reverse order of their year, so from the newest to the oldest. Then underneath here we have some callback functions used by the viewing functions. So we have one used by cars to display the car values, one used by makes, one used by modals, and then finally, this is where we'll use the console for this, the callback count. What this does is, it'll be called by a function that needs to display the, such as this one right here, it'll be displayed by this one, called here, and it will return the number of rows that that query has given me. And this is specifically meant so I can track how many are in here, as unlike with every other PL you'll see me do databasing in, C does not have dynamically sizing containers such as vectors from C+, or arrays, array lists, etc. from all the other languages. So I need to get the amount of rows to make the integer lists here initially beforehand. And so we run this query with the count enumerator to get it. So if I were to run this function, select count from car, I can run it in here to show y'all. If I run this, the count I get is 9. There are 9 cars, which is technically true, so perfect. So we get that number and it comes down here. So all we're doing in this callback is retrieving that value from that query and giving it back to where I called it from initially. So let's try running some code here. So we build it and we run it. We're greeted by quite a nice program listing. Let's exit immediately to prove that works. Program's exited. Nice too. Build it again. Let's start off simple. Let's change a car's owner. Enter the numeral 9 as displayed here. And now we are granted with a list of all the cars in the database, all the information we could need on them, and we are told to enter the car's ID that we wish to change. So the IDs are listed here on this left column where you see my cursor at. Pretty simple. Wait a second to fix my window, it would seem. Alright. So we enter an ID for the car to change. Let's enter one of the ones that is unowned and make it owner. And then we'll take one of the ones that is owned and make it unowned. So this car here, number 16. Let's change this one. Enter 16. And now we're told to enter the owner's ID. See how we can make it unownered if we wanted. But let's give this to Jim. We enter a 3. And now the car is owned by Jim. So if I were to view all the cars, the numeral 10, 16 now has an owner of 3, which is Jim. Cool. Let's try changing another one. Enter 9. Let's change this red one, ID 20. This one's also owned by Jim, and we'll make it ownerless. So ID 20, and enter -1, and now it should no longer have an owner. So if I view all people, 11, as my numeral, and we view the cars owned by Jim, numeral 3, we are now given Jim's information and all the cars he owns. And see now he only owes 1. Now note how earlier we said that, say, 5, Kaylee has 2 cars. Let's view what cars Kaylee has. So, a numeral 11 again. And let's enter 5 for Kaylee. And we can see that she has 2 vehicles. Nice too. Let's remove a car. Enter a 5 for that option. And now we select the car ID that we wish to remove. Let's remove a car that doesn't have an owner for simple sake. This car here, for instance, 23. This is a Ford Focus. It was actually not made in 1850, but we all know that the Ford Focus is a terrible vehicle, does not have any get up and go at all. And so, clearly nobody wanted it and nobody owns it. So, let's do a favor and scrap it. Enter the 23 ID, and it's gone. So let's try viewing all the cars again and see if it's still there. 23 is missing. Quite convenient for us. Okay, well, let's add a new person to the database. Let's enter a 2 numeral and enter a person's name. Let's enter Kathy. She'll be the person we add. Now, let's give Kathy a car. Enter 1 to add a car. Enter the car's color. Well, she's pretty normal, so maybe she wants a black car. Fair enough. Probably one of the best colors. Enter the car year. We're in 2025, so you're probably going to buy a car that's 2010 and up more likely. Let's say 2019 was the year for a car. Now we're told to enter the car's make ID. This will determine which models you can choose from. Now, as a programmer's note, the database does not contain any models for quite a few of these makes. And so I'm going to specifically target Subaru because I have the most makes or most models for Subaru. So that's numeral 1. Now we are given the list of models under that make and told to enter the model ID. So let's give her an Ascent, ID number 7. And does this car have an owner? Enter yes. And now we will give it to Kathy, ID 6. Sweet. Now let's view Kathy. 11 again, and 6 to view her. And now she shows up. Note that black will show up as a funny symbol. That's a quirk of C. Sweet. Now let's view all the cars in the descending order of year. Enter an 18 numeral. And now note that the order that they are now appearing in is not of their ID going up, it is now of their year going down. Cool. But what if I wanted to see only the year 2018 show up? Well, enter numeral 17 and enter the year 2018. And now only the 2 cars of 2018 will show up. Awesome. We'll do one more before I end the video here. Let's do all the cars with the same make, 16. Now we choose the make. Let's choose Subaru, because I have a bunch of those in here. And now all the cars with the make Subaru will show up in here. Awesome. And now let's go ahead and display what the final state of our DB looks like after refreshing. So in here, stuff has disappeared. Nothing has changed in make, nothing has changed in modal, and person has had Kathy added. Awesome. Seems everything works. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you guys have suggestions for future projects or future programming language that you guys would like to see me tackle, future technologies that learning would be beneficial, I'd love to hear it in the comment section below. While you guys are down there, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and like. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.